Welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk. After Turkey beat Brazil, Wildcats took down my boys.
No, but more seriously, congratulations on the win. It was a super chaotic game. It was back and forth, but obviously with the pre-game banter between myself and Yinsu.
Congratulations on Yinsu for the win too.
Thanks for rubbing that one in. I was hoping for a Brazilian win, but the truth is, the game was very chaotic. It went back and forth. A lot of individual plays and misplays were punished.
Yes.
And it actually allowed like this ping pong back and forth of control throughout the entire game.
Yeah, multiple fights happened in this exact area because it was a real fight for dragon control in River. And in the end of the day, just talking about the draft, loved it from the side of the fast-paced Wildcats. I think Mordekaiser as a pick, very seldom used, and a lot of the times, especially with the priority in Galio and Camille, is a great counter. And so a lot of these fights were working well for the Canids because of the fact that they were able to just eliminate Holy Phoenix right from the get-go. And so once Holy Phoenix was allowed to play the game, it started to work well for them.
I mean, in particular, this is a team that, you know, needed everyone else around Holy Phoenix to kind of step up and start playing. And Yinsu in particular, when she was ranting at me about Turkey's players. And you can see at this game, as you mentioned, I do think there's a particular spiciness in Mordekaiser being used to beat a Brazilian representative on the international
There's beauty
stage.
alongside it, right? And even if you just look at the bans, a consistent ban point for teams that go up against the Wildcats.
Oh, you mean
ADK.
Lucian, Kalista, Samira, Xayah, all targets to the Holy Phoenix.
It's a little tilting if you're Holy Phoenix.
Yeah.
You could see the frustration in his eyes, and he was just like, please, I'm getting targeted. And it was Starscreen, and it was Saren that were picking up
I do need
the
to move
baton.
us along, and I do think one of the most amazing things that Casters mentioned is the fact that this group is now blown wide open, especially with PSG losing. Before we get to PSG versus RNG in our final match of the day, we get a little bit more about RNG. So let's send it over to Aux for the Neighborhood Tactics presented by State Farm.
Where'd he go?
Hey, so what I wanted to show is Xiaohu's excellent map reads and how RNG will be able to find big leads on the back of it, and him having a really heads-up just view on how to move around the map to facilitate his team. So in this clip, we can see with the setup, Wei is making a play towards the bot side of the map, and they are trying to zone off Mako and Viper from the turret and deny them farm. But the critical thing is when we look at the mini-map, we can actually see that the enemy jungler JJ is heading up towards the top side. He actually walked over this ward here. And you can see also that Xiaohu originally was heading towards the mid lane, instead opts to path up towards to cover defensively on this situation. So as we play the clip, we start to see the dive come out from EDG, and this would be a standard cross map where EDG look to match what's happening on the other side of the map. But critically, we see Xiaohu actually goes into the lane and hides in the brush below and looks to counteract the play. Now, I'm going to warn you, the execution here is a little bit scuffed from EDG, so you may want to cover your eyes on that front. Xiaoshang kind of whiffs the ult completely, but the main point here is the play coming out from Xiaohu, the fact that he's there and he's able to turn around the play. So instead of an advantage for EDG on the top side, they end up trading up, and they still manage to deny on the other side of the map, where if we look, Dragon has just been taken there by Wei, and we also see the enemy bot lane denied heavily on this side of the map. And it's plays like these that are so typical from Xiaohu. It's why we've seen a heavy presence on Galio, Chef, and Rise. So we can make those cross-map plays, and ultimately, it's a big reason why RNG did win the league. So we'll keep our eyes on more plays like this in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
The reigning MSI champions are representing their region once again, and today they face a team that pushed them to the limit last time they met.
GALA is attacked and shut down, but is Elder Dragon enough? Mega hits the wall, Shockwave back in, the shutdown comes across, Ming is low, but there aren't enough teammates left for PSG.
The hope of the PCS has lost some familiar faces since then, but still managed to win their third straight domestic title.
Brazil is here to dominate. PSG, rather, are getting ripped to pieces.
The LPL representatives are always one of the favorites whenever they come into a tournament, and already they hold 2 MSI titles, the same as T1.
RNG take down the world champ.
我觉得本身就是我们还有那几个大赛区会实力就更强一些吧，然后碰到别的赛区的队友的话，肯定是实力上会占据一定优势的，然后也有心情影响。
For them, this MSI is about making it back to back and become the only team with 3 MSI titles. Both these teams are expected to finish top 2 in their group, and this game is a sign of what's to come. I may have hit that video with a little bit more intensity than I remember recording. The story and the statements, however, do remain true. Welcome back to the Analyst Desk, where Aux joins Raz and I once more. I have some breaking news for everybody that PSG Talon will be playing with a substitute top laner in Azhi. This is somebody who has not played all season long, and this is after their, I'm going to be brutal, their obliteration at the counts yesterday. Raz, what do you make of this?
Yeah, it's pretty surprising because he didn't play with him for the regular season. In fact, he's been on the sub lineup, but he has played in the PCS with the Bajaya Dragons. And so, like, the fact that he's had that experience is nice to see. It's not as if they're pulling in a complete rookie. And it must be just based off the information that they've had privately in their scrims. So interested to see what they had there. But I'm puzzled because of the history, the strength that Hanabi has had.
And ultimately, he's gone up against Bin, who is very much a feast of famine player. I think if Bin has a pop-off game and takes advantage of maybe the lack of experience I have with playing with him, it could be a disaster. But on the other side, we've seen Bin make mistakes before, particularly in the LPL, a player who is liable to overtrade and then sometimes get heavily punished by the jungler. Could go either way, but this is still RNG favored.
Could go either way. I'm going to ask you to put some odds to percentages to me of how much.
Ooh,
not right now. Hold the thought, right? Because I do want to set the scenes. Part of the reason that I was so intense and hyped for that video that we ran just beforehand is the fact that PSG and RNG obviously faced off last year at MSI in the semifinals. The series went 3-1 in favor of RNG. These are teams that are no strangers to one another. And I think more crucially, PSG Talon has had several years of pretty impressive performances on the international stage. Since the PCS formed, they've been the most dominant team and have been very competitive against every other region, including wins against some of the big dogs.
Yeah, because all eyes were on PSG consistently, because a lot of the times when you have a team that's dominant in a shallow region, right, when it comes to competitiveness, like, you usually expect poor play. Hasn't been the case for them. In fact, Maple and specifically River and that iteration of the team were the ones that were carrying the baton. They were the ones that were strong and really giving them like some bite. And so the fact that just yesterday being able to see the fact that they are missing that, we need to see a little bit more. So really surprised with the substitution, because I was expecting, like we were talking about a little earlier, that Hanabi was going to be that person. So maybe they see something we don't. He is a carry player. We see he's been playing some Jace and Renekton and all that. But when I say Renekton, I mean, that was in the past, in the prior meta. I don't know what he's going to play.
And I think ultimately the mid-jungle, which is something we've highlighted before from PSG, has been so strong. I feel like that's where the kind of issues have been. I feel like there's been a disconnect between them and the rest of the team. And I feel like, you know, changing more pieces, we'll have to see if it plays out, but ultimately...
Can go either way, right? Can either give you that new perspective away.
Yeah.
I'm the silver lining right now. Could give you that, or it could mess with synergy. I do want to quickly look at some kills and some highlights from RNG's game yesterday. They came in pretty hot, and Aux, I'm going to come straight to you because, you know, of all the LPL representatives, you're the one that's, let's say, down-talking Bin the most.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I will say a lot of international fans will have seen Bin the last time 2020 World Finals got a pentakill was pretty sick. They may have watched the finals in the LPL, really good performance. Last split, though, there was so much time, like this split, sorry, where he just didn't perform.
I can feel your pain.
Yeah,
I can feel it.
He plays like those solo queue top laners where they don't believe the enemy jungler exists. If the enemy top laner walks up and looks slightly appetizing, he goes in. It's so many top laners in China inspired by the Shy. I feel like he's corrupted them. And ultimately, it's been such teething issues for RNG, going from Xiaohu, very good at setting a wave state for them to play around, to Bin, where it's like, well, maybe he does this and carries, maybe he just runs it.
So now, Aux, I think it's fair to say yesterday's performance very good. I do
100%.
think it's going to be very unlikely, in my opinion, that any team in this group is really going to be able to unsettle them, at least consistently,
I think that's fair.
right? So give me some odds here that the substitute top laner who has not played all year long is going to be able to ruffle the feathers of Bin, maybe get under his skin, maybe have a bit more of an impact than we saw Hanabi have yesterday.
I would honestly say 50%. I think that's...
Wow.
I think that RNG are for sure going to win this game. I think like 95-5, but I think Bin, I'm so negative on him. I really love him as a player when he's popping off, but I could honestly see him just getting solo killed.
If you don't love him at his worst, you can't have him at his best.
I've seen him too much at his worst.
You're speaking the truth there, Quickshot. I like the point of the 95-5. That's where I would land pretty comfortably on that one, just simply because a lot of the times people take the aggressive top laners for granted. And much like in your play that you were kind of breaking down, the analysis of, hey, Xiaohu knows, hey, if your top laner is going to get dove or if he's looking for a play, you protect him. And I feel like that has been the beauty of Xiaohu.
I absolutely appreciate the bold statements. I also particularly love the distaste for Bin. It really gets under my skin. Oisin, Dagda, tell me if what he's saying is right. Do you believe in Bin, or are you more on Aux' side, where he's just going to poop the bed, as they would say?
I don't know. I tend to agree with a lot what Aux says.
I mean, in Aux' own words, it's on Grump. What he says is just completely true. Look, Bin, I mean, I agree with him, right? Bin just overextends a lot. He does get caught out. And even at the start of the split, we saw kind of RNG try to play around him to facilitate some of that a little bit. And they're like, yeah, no, we're just going to go bot lane instead.
Yeah, it does feel like every now and again. I always feel it's with LPL casters in general. Everyone's just like super hyped in their own region. And LPL is just like, yeah, but we know what they're like. Yeah. So we know what's going on. But anyway, we are coming in to our 6th and final game of the day. It is going to be RNG going up against PSG, a rematch of the 2021 semi-finals within MSI. A lot has changed. A lot is very, very different. We are expecting RNG to be heavy favorites here, but it's definitely an opportunity here to see if PSG, with the new player, to see what they can maybe make happen.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit unfortunate for PSG Talon, like going up against realistically the favorites for the group, having to have that substitute come in. I think it's going to be kind of tough as well when you look at just how strong RNG look, because one of the big things that we kind of looked at like coming in from playoffs was we thought it wasn't really a meta that suited RNG. Realistically, they're a team that always kind of was more facilitated when Ming could roam, when Ming was able to interact with Wei. We saw them MSI and MSI last year where they could play around Xiaohu and make sure that they were in a good spot to take over MSI, the reigning champions. But that's not really what we're having in this meta anymore. They're not trying to play around down towards the bottom side. Now they're starting to swap more towards trying to play for these for this kind of like roaming support that can link up away a little bit better.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see now what Azhi can do in this top lane, like we mentioned, or even the desk mentioned as well. Hanabi was someone they were looking to be that catalyst, to be that, bringer of change. Not going to be him. We'll see if Azhi can have a decent time now as we start to see things. I know the Lucian is absolutely busted, but I will just remind everyone that Xiaohu is probably the greatest top lane, actually I would say solo lane Lucian in the entire world. So even if he wasn't busted right now, you still got to ban it.
Yeah, I think definitely fair to try and take these away. Also seeing the Vladimir taken off the board here as well. So definitely we're seeing RNG kind of giving due respect towards PSG Talon. But I am kind of curious to see what the plan is going to be here. Because, I mean, it really did feel like for PSG Talon, they, even over the course of the split, they're all heavily on Unified, being on the Jinxes, the Aphelioses. We see them try to bring Aphelios to the stage yesterday and kind of didn't work out particularly well. So I'm curious now to see what the plan is for PSG Talon, how they try to adapt, and if they try to adapt to the newer style of meta.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why we are so heavily, we mentioned as well, we're so heavily leaning towards RNG now favoring the meta. They're a team that don't really like to put a huge amount of emphasis on bot lane. They'll work around it. GALA has had some fantastic plays, but they much prefer to get Ming unlocked, move him around the map, and facilitate the rest of the solo lanes.
Even just the fact that we're kind of seeing these later game scaling junglers coming through, like Aux was talking about it backstage, like Wade loved the Viego. Like, Viego was such a big pick for him in playoffs, and the fact we're kind of seeing, hey, look, you don't have to go for the Lee Sins, the Jarvins, these kind of things, actually kind of help out Wade to a certain extent. So be curious to see as the course of this tournament goes on, how RNG are able to kind of shift themselves towards the newer style. But that's going to be Bin's Camille banned away, and Bin is just never going to get to play this champion.
I was just about to say, as much as Aux might have his grievances with Bin has had the Camille 100% banned against him from playoffs right up until now. He will never be allowed to play that champion because it's like, yeah, he's not playing super well, but when all of a sudden he gets the Camille, it doesn't matter that you're playing super well because he knows that champion's so damn clean and so damn intensely. But coming back into the draft, we are going to have the Ahri locked in here for the side of Xiaohu, and PSG, they got to try and find some kind of answers to it. It looks like they're leaning towards the Vex and maybe even the Senna.
Yeah, I mean, this is what PSG Talon kind of leaned towards, was the later game compositions. Like, where they excelled in the PCS was these, 5-man team fights around objectives. So trying to see if they can set up for that once more. You've got the Viego with the later game scaling, good answer in the Vex into the Ahri, and you'll definitely be looking to see if as he can kind of fit in towards the traditional style that we've seen where Hanabi kind of plays this frontline engage tool. But being the one to kind of call those engages can be tough if you're the substitute coming in. So I'm wondering if we'll see Kaiwing kind of fall back towards things like the Leona and being that main engage tool for this squad because you've got that new top laner coming in.
And the interesting thing, if you don't know anything or a lot about GALA in terms of his regular splits or any kind of terms, he picks a champion. And that's his champion. It was a Kai'Sa last MSI, then it was a Felios, now it's the Ezreal. He just has one champion that he picks because he knows he's not the focus of this team, so he's able to get that very safe bottom lane.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got the Nautilus here for Ming as well, which has kind of been that big pick for him in the regular split as well. So maybe we end up seeing Ming go towards that, but Wei going to go back towards the Volibear. A pick that we haven't seen a huge amount in MSI, which I've been kind of surprised that it hasn't been higher priority, but definitely a strong early game jungler that can link up with Xiaohu and start to cause a bit of ruckus for Bay in this mid lane.
And we'll see what they want to try and go towards now for PSG. You would imagine they'd want to try and maybe lock in an AD carry. The Xayah makes a lot of sense here. Gives you an awful lot of safety as well as just good pushing early game power.
It is very heavily nerfed, that lethality Xayah coming into this patch, and even though we saw the Xayah earlier on today, it is that crit build that we one time we've seen in that bot lane, and I think it'll actually kind of fit Unified a little bit more because he wants to be that late game carry, late game crit Xayah with the kind of ability to appeal for himself. Can work out super well for Unified, and I think that is still kind of PSG Talon going, hey look, we want to try and play for these objective team fights.
Well, we'll have to wait and see now. Where do you want to try and focus? And you'd imagine a couple of top lane bans going towards Bin would be decided they, but no, they're trying to ban away Ming's Karma. And we've started to see this as a bit of a trend. Ming is more traditionally known as a very heavy engaged, support. He's the Alistairs and stuff like that, but the Karma has just kind of become part of his wheelhouse.
Even the Renata as well, kind of being respected a lot against him in playoffs as well. So kind of interesting to see that style, but certainly I think when you've got the Ezreal on the bot side, you want an engage tool, right? Like you want something that can work well in the roams. Now, Karma can do that to a certain extent, but honestly, I think, as you say, the Alistairs, the Leonas, the Nautiluses, Rakans kind of fit more in towards that style, at least that I'm looking at from RNG here. So I'd love to see the Nautilus ban just give the respect to Ming, because we've kind of been bragging about him a little bit backstage to the other casters. So if we actually do get to see the Nautilus, I mean, you're in for a bit of a treat.
I mean, it had to be first picked against him yesterday, and that didn't go well for the side of the Istanbul Wildcats. So they are going to ban away the Gangplank. Of course, plenty of European fans very familiar with Bin's Gangplank as we come out into this game. And this honestly is just kind of, I feel like RNG are getting what they want right now. I don't really feel like they're going to be pigeonholed into any particular matchups because they've got a wealth of champions to choose from. Yeah, especially when you look towards like Bin in the top side. I mean, we can kind of see him go back towards something like the Gwen if he wants to. Has never really been a guy to go towards things like the Orin or the Sion. Has always been more of that kind of carry style. We've seen a couple of Gragas's from him that have actually been pretty good, but it feels like he's going to be looking more towards those carry-oriented picks in that top side. Well, the Cannon Ban speaks to me like he might want to go for the Gwen, which might just be a little bit of a bait as well to try and make the blind pick come out here for Azhi. Or Azhi, excuse me, as we see what they want to go for. But no, it's going to be the Rakans. The Rakan gets locked in here, and honestly, I think even if you go Gwen Nautilus here, that's a fantastic team composition for RNG.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, a lot of the times we see the Renata come out as an answer towards the Rakan, because you can kind of just, as the Rakan goes in, you toss out the Berserk and make it really difficult for the follow-up to come through. And that, I think, could work out pretty well here if you want that for Ming in the bot side. I think the big question is, though, like, what do you want to try and go towards for Bin? Although, hovering the Braum here, very different style that we traditionally see from Ming.
Yeah, gonna lock it in. So a lot more kite ability, a lot more safety in that bot side and around team fights as well. Not exactly the greatest of engages itself, but very powerful.
But that's what I'm saying. That's kind of my big thing here, is you're missing that big engage tool on RNG, right? Because usually we actually see Ming providing that. Even when we look back at, MSI last year, like even when we looked at them in summer as well, it was more about Ming being the engage tool, but you don't have that access now. So you're kind of relying on Bin, who's hovering the Gnar here, to try and set that up. So at least on PSG side, you have a relatively short range composition, so you should be relatively okay to try and play kite back, get some poke off with this Ezreal, like force PSG to go for the engage. But certainly you're not going to have that big wombo to start things off for RNG.
Well, they've got a little bit of a wombo, but it's what I call like a sometimes wombo. They've got the Gnar. It will have the Mega Gnar to get people into the side of a wall, maybe set up something from there. And if you can catch the Xayah and what I assume is going to be the Gwen locked in here, you could have a fantastic time in your team fight. But PSG do end up locking it in, so they've got two fantastically powerful solo laners and a Viego to try and facilitate as well. A lot of positive early game coming out here from PSG.
Yeah, the PSG definitely going to be looking to get up in your face and look for these engage tools, trying to use Gwen as that front line with the immune. But I think the big issue that you're probably going to see is that, like, when you get this engage tool from Kaiwing, you try and separate them out, right? You've got the Braum to throw down the Glacial Fissure, try and deny access from a lot of these short-range carries on PSG, and then you kite back with the likes of the Ezreal, you know, buy space for yourself. You've got Xiaohu who can kind of play flanker here, and then Bin trying to readjust the fight after that initial engage has come through from PSG. So definitely kind of absorb and re-attack here on RNG side. And I'm curious to see if PSG can get this sort of early lead rolling so that then they can get the resets that you want on things like the Vex and the Viego to carry these fights out.
Absolutely. And again, like you said, the absorb and reflect, we'll see how much they can absorb, because I feel like, again, similar to what we saw with most Viego compositions, the Vex has those resets as well. So when you start to get that rolling, start to get that momentum pushing forward, it can become a bit of a snowball that you just cannot hold.
And for PSG Talon, definitely going to want to be trying to step up here today. As you said, I mean, a 3-1 scoreline last time these two teams met in MSI semi-finals. But even when you look at the Worlds as well, losing out to Homwall, losing out to RNG in the group, so they couldn't progress. It definitely feels like PSG Talon trying to see if they can finally get the better of RNG.
We are going to jump on the riff for the 6th and final time of the day. It is our Mercedes-Benz featured matchup of RNG versus PSG Talon. Old rivalries, some old friends, but an awful lot of League of Legends between these two regions. And it does come down to kind of how PSG can start this one off. If the Viego can have that freedom in the early game to just try to, you know, dictate where he wants to go.
I mean, it's very hard against the Volibear, right? Volibear is such a strong early jungler. And I mean, Wei has had a mixed bag, I will say, on things like the Volibear in the early stages. Like, that's why we were kind of talking about the Viego earlier on. Wei can, like, over-aggress in certain skirmishes, especially towards, like, early dragons and these kind of things, not really respecting what RNG are capable of. So I'm curious to see now if Wei can actually have this early impact, because it's what we kind of pointed against top esports. Wei struggling to actually find these early aggressive plays to enable a Volibear pick.
We'll see where we want to go. Both junglers will be starting on the top side of the map and pathing down towards it. And I wouldn't mind to see maybe a little bit, specifically from Wei, as you mentioned, just a little bit of a maybe crazy pathing or something a little bit more different to kind of, you know, catch people off and go for it. But again, RNG yesterday were infallible. They just were just so clean, and they didn't need to over-aggress. It looked dominating from start to finish. And honestly, I think that another performance like that is going to be needed if they want to try and continue that momentum.
And on the flip side for PSG Talon, they really struggled against Red and these early rotations that we saw with Cheaton moving up towards mid to work with Grevtar, getting picks onto Bay. It felt like Juhan couldn't really get that early control that he needed and get the ball rolling. And unfortunately, this has kind of been something that we've seen a little bit from PSG Talon back home, is kind of the communication between the Koreans hasn't been the best with the rest of the team. They've even talked about it in interviews. And now you're going to add in Azhi to that as well. Like, this is actually going to be a bit tough for PSG Talon, especially when you look at the tenure that Hanabi has had. Like, one of the best, if not the best top laner in the PCS, now removed from the squad as well.
I can tell you now, PSG's pot lane's been removed from this lane. They are not allowed to go in. That was just heat-seeking Mystic shots coming out from GALA. We saw this in Game 1 as well in their MSI 2022 campaign. This was just so much damage coming out so quickly, and even then so early as well. We don't generally see that kind of, you know, power coming from an Ezreal, especially not pre-10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just remembering the old, like, Lucian Braum, level 2 power spike. But, I mean, realistically, Ezreal can kind of do a similar thing, right? The Mystic shots and those auto attacks work pretty well at getting these very quick concussive blows off. And then we're going to see if Ming can kind of find a little bit more of a blow on towards Juhan.
I mean, you got the early priority in mid, you've got a priority in bot. Gotta be careful, though. Blue will go over, Wei's going to be flashed on, knocked up, double stunned. We're going to see now Ming going to stand behind me as he tries to jump over the wall, and that's going to be the Vex taken out. Xiaohu was in tow, and he knew exactly exactly where he needed to be. Now Juhan, he's trying to see if he can get away from this, but the concussive blows make that very, very difficult. You got to go to a doctor, my son, because your head's been cracked open.
And the Triumph comes in for Wei, so he stays up, and now PSG already 2 kills down. A 1,500 gold lead. We're not even 4 minutes into the game.
Do you remember the T1 A's one we had earlier?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that, but with RNG this time.
Gotcha.
You know?
All right.
So just to get our expectations set, we got our cool TCL versus CB LOL. Sadly, this is just RNG. They are not playing. They are here for business.
And it is kind of interesting to see like how much respect RNG have coming into this, right? Like banning away the Vladimir in the get-go, making sure that you're not getting comfort picks for PSG. And here, I gotta say, I got a little bit nervous for Wei. I was about to go, everybody said he overextends that little bit. Well, you know, things happen. But honestly, having the support here for Xiaohu to come across, you've got GALA who comes in as well just in time to make sure he can follow up on the play here as well. Ming just about getting out. You don't even have to burn the heal on GALA, just respecting that play the whole time.
Yeah, that's a tough one to kind of swallow right there, because it just comes from very basic lane priorities. You had the push in mid, you had the push bot. You could see in that replay in the minimap, like, Unify couldn't join because how is he going to lose so much? And there's no vision here now as they try to maybe jump on the Xiaohu. Xiaohu does have his flash. You're a level 2 Kaiwing right now. This Rakan doesn't even have his full kit yet.
Yeah, and they just back it off. And as you say, you know, you're looking at GALA, Ming already having the control over bot side. Wei doing really well here. Xiaohu having 2 kills as well means he's got that early Ionian Boots of Lucidity in the Dark Seal. Like, Bei is going to struggle in this lane now. And when mid is under this much control, one of the big things we talk about with Xiaohu is actually something we talked about earlier on with FLICKR, where you look at how Xiaohu and Aux pointed down the desk starts to move around the map, keeping RNG in check, finding these plays to set up as the mastermind for RNG. It becomes so much easier with this lead.
Yeah, with this lead and with these double buffs, you will eventually lose them, but the harassment is there. And you think of RNG, a lot of people tend to think towards Uzi. Cannot blame the man as a god amongst AD carries. However, RNG have 5 titles. Xiaohu has 5 titles. This man has been there. He's the glue. He's the whole reason that no matter who they bring in, it seems to just work. He runs around the map, works around the map so damn well with his team. It just feels like he's just the puppet master.
And I mean, it's the reason why they were so successful in MSI 2021, right? Like him playing top side, playing off things like the Lucian. It was his understanding of how to play side lanes that made RNG the threat that they are. And now that we're seeing a very different style of RNG with Xiaohu moving back to the mid lane again, he's still the one that controls the early game. Make sure that RNG are able to get to the mid game, because RNG, when they hit that point, that's when they're super strong. That's where they're able to play towards neutrals. But that's also where PSG are at their biggest strength. Because when you look at like the way that they actually played back home in the PCS, it was all about, you know, not really getting off the ground very, very quickly, but certainly like looking towards these neutral objectives, trying to find these moments where you can just win out hard at these team fights.
Absolutely, and for PSG Talon as an organization, you know, it was not at all. I stop myself as GALA goes a little bit aggressive as Arcane Shift, has to burn his own flash. A little bit of a mistake there on the bot side, but yes, for PSG Talon, they had to go through the losers bracket. They were actually knocked out of the top side of it and had to earn themselves back into it. So, and then we think about obviously from last year, they had a very, very different roster compared to what it is now, despite there being still a couple of names we recognize.
And one of the big reasons people were talking about that for PSG Talon was, oh, hang on.
Oh my lord, that's a lot of damage. And Ming is feeling himself right now. Pushes forward. The Ignite was ticking. You've got Juhan coming down here. We are going to see Bin now getting jumped on. The needlework doing work. He's not quite got his mega just yet. He's going to try and go down flash. And Aux can keep his fist down.
I already know Aux is giving just the biggest grin to Quickshot in the back room. I have worked with this man long enough to know exactly how his
I can almost hear his voice now saying, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. The giggle.
With a big giggle coming out. But he doesn't quite die. But again, this is the kind of reason why we have a lot of question marks over Bin sometimes. He just doesn't really respect his 1v1 at the best
And
of
it
times.
feels like, honestly, if you're kind of looking at someone that can also be a big carry alongside Unified in these fights, it is going to be this Gwen. Oh, actually Unified.
No flash on GALA. Oh, okay. Maybe doesn't need flash.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh boy. But I'm going to come back to this point, because if this Gwen could kind of get up and rolling, you are in a position where, because you've got that immunity with the W, like Xiaohu can't really deal damage to you, GALA who wants to play at range can't really do very much, so you can have the opportunity to kill the front line of RNG very quickly and take over. Problem though is that 23 CS leading the top side, Ming having full push, a plate to himself as well, and Rift Herald.
Oh, they're going straight down to Xiaohu, who's going to have the Spirit Rush to get himself out, has to use the flash as well. The Rift Herald was taken by Wei, and now Juhan's in a little bit of a bad situation. He needs a flash away, but he's been met and equaled by the side of RNG's Wei, and that's going to be Ming picking up a kill. Now they can flash in, they're going to try and get Bin up to his Mega Gnar. They try and take down Xiaohu. Finally, he falls. Excuse me, the ultimate from Unified alongside the heal is Ming now in a little bit of trouble. He's going to try and get the concussive blows down to try and save the rest of his team. While this is all happening, it's just Bin getting right up to Mega. They jump right down. It's the big beefy boys trying to make it work, but he snipes someone out. No, he cannot. PSG find a fight.
Lads, GALA's in bot lane. Why are we fighting 4 versus 5? You got the kill, you got the Rift Herald, you can back away, you can play nice. But instead, PSG Talon end up fighting back, getting some of these much needed kills. And you can see with that goal going over towards Bay as well. 2 kills now on the Vex. If Vex can get into these fights, blow someone up, you've got a pretty reasonable chance here as PSG with the amount of damage that this Vex can do.
And this is, again, just what you want as a PSG fan. You want to be able to get those very scrappy, all over the place fights where you're getting those resets off, you're getting the Gwen to get up to those, you know, the stacked up queues. And this is where it's going to become a bit of an issue for the side of RNG. You cannot disrespect your opponents. You have to be clinical.
And again, as I said, like, you didn't actually have GALA there. GALA had reset, but had decided to go bot side because RNG, in theory, were calling off the play. You had the Rift Herald, you'd already gotten what you came for, but they try and go that bit too far forward, and it does cost them. So now I think the big question is, where do they try and use this Rift Herald, right? Because you're already looking at GALA having full control of the spot lane. It doesn't really feel like you need to get more control there. So it feels like trying to crack open this mid lane turret, like open up roam paths for Xiaohu, could be the best way to go about this.
And though, yes, Azhi has been doing very well on this top side, he's still 30 CS down. A kill went over to Bin. It's still rough. It's still very, very rough. And with double AP solo laners, you've mentioned it many, many times, with those Merc treads, it becomes very easy for Bin to try and make this one work. But it's just kind of a little bit of disrespect from Xiaohu. They don't really know where the Viego is, and they just get caught by it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Xiaohu does a good job of getting out of this, right? And one of the big things about with the rework on Ahri is when you start to get these kills, that health bar comes back pretty damn quickly. But again, it's like, this is fine. Now back away. There's no reason to try and chase this, and they don't realize Unified is here, so everyone on RNG flashes galore, but they end up just putting themselves in a great spot for Unified here to try and follow up.
Oh, Bin and Wei trying to make this one work. TP going to be coming in, and it's going to be the Volibear taken very low and taken out. This is regular season RNG.
This is why we've had some issues with
we're never as super confident as everyone else. We're always very realistic with ourselves. But again, it's just RNG kind of going for something that wasn't really there and very unnecessary.
But you can even see, right, Bin nowhere near turning to Mega Gnar. He doesn't really want to be in underneath the tower. Wei doesn't even ult the tower, so that's still online and just super messy from RNG. And now, I mean, you look at the gold lead, it's still kind of 2,000 gold for PSG Talon, but it's keeping themselves, you know, from falling further and further behind.
We've got bot lane now picking up. Bin is trying to go a bit forward now, trying to slow down Azhi as he tries to get a bit more damage. I don't think he's going to be able to do much else than just poke him down, but with a red buff here for the Gwen, makes it a little bit easier to sustain that battle up. So they're going to drop Rift Herald in mid, get that priority, and then look forwards to Dragon.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about already, right? Like trying to open up the map for Xiaohu so he can actually get some roams going on this Ahri, but also looking towards that second dragon for RNG. And at least when you look like domestically, that's where RNG have been at their strongest, is these neutral objectives. And they've had absolutely insane control over pretty much any neutral that is spawned on the map. And we're seeing it again here, right? Already getting that early Rift Herald for themselves. And when you look at their Drake control back home, it's, you know, second in the league at nearly 60% of those dragons.
Despite all the shenanigans that RNG have decided to go with in this particular game, they are still winning in terms of the gold lead. 3,000, 2 dragons in their pocket as well. And they've got one more Rift Herald charge to take down that mid turret as they start to roam themselves down. And Ming finds himself a treasure trove of wards and keeps everything in check in this bot side. GALA is finding himself a pretty decent, actually, CS lead, about 20 or so. as he comes up into about the 13-minute mark. And this is where the game starts to get a little bit more funky, because we start to see those first MasterCard Mythics. We start to see those first big item spikes coming out for both sides.
The thing is, though, like, PSG haven't been unaccustomed to coming back into games, right? Like, you look at the way that they played in the playoffs, one of the big criticisms of them was, look, Unified and Kaiwing just couldn't have that same impact that they were able to have during the regular split. They had to come back from these deficits, and it feels like, at least here with PSG fighting back continuously against RNG, that they aren't completely out of the woods yet. You feel like when you look towards Bay, being able to get up towards the Everfrost, he can actually set up relatively well for these fights. I think the big issue is just going to be, you know, this Gwen falling further and further behind, with turret plates going towards Bin, the fact he's got, you know, nearly double the CS of this Gwen as well. That's where I think you're going to start to see issues, especially if Bin starts to go towards things like the Hull Breaker and just take over in that side lane.
Wei thought he could maybe steal away the red buff, was denied at the last second. As you can see, Bin just constantly putting harassment down here. Won't get that final plate, and will go Mega to secure himself a nice easy exit. But like I said, that's a 60 CS lead in the top side. That is significant gold that's just being not gained by the Gwen.
And RNG are only looking to push this lead as well, right? You can see GALA moving in towards the mid lane. They're keeping their eyes on the next Rift Tower that's about to spawn. Good damage onto Bay as well. Means it becomes harder to try and keep control of this mid lane, with GALA and Susan as well, to now move across towards this Rift Tower and keep up this neutral objective control.
Well, this will be 4 for 4 in the early game if they're able to secure it, but you can see PSG Talon trying to make sure that they don't give this one up for free. Now Bay in a little bit of trouble here. Charm goes wide, but the Blades official does not. They're going to be able to increase the engage with the quickness and then come back in on top of this. It's a trade of support, though, for your mid laner. You take that as RNG. You will get the Heartbreaker out. Kaiwing has to flash away. They've also committed a TP. That's going to be the Gwen with Ghost and Ultimate coming back into this fight. But look at the poke coming out from GALA right now. These Mystic shots are just doing so much work. You can't re-engage.
And now, RNG have just found their way in onto the tower as well. I mean, there's nobody here to defend it because PSG have taken far too much damage. Rift Tower will go down, means he can actually get the charge onto the second turret here as well. Tower will be traded for Unified in the bot lane, but, you know, 2 for 1 already with Tower, as he's saying, top side also under threat.
This is just, it looks scrappy from RNG, and it is, but then you look at the gold, and they're just catapulting everything ahead.
But this is why they were able to beat top esports, right? It's not the early game, it's how strong their mid-game is, how well they can play the map with Puppet Master Xiaohu. And now you're starting to see that, right? Like, yes, they trade one bot side, but with the lead that they have and how dominating Bin is, they're just taking over elsewhere.
5,000 gold lead as we come back and see the replay here. And again, it's very scrappy, it's very all over the place. Bay is already half health when this one starts, so it's already in a pretty dire straits, shall we say, for the side of PSG mid laner.
Yeah, Xiaohu just able to get the final kill, flashing away from Kaiwing so he doesn't get charged. And you can see here, PSG Talon are like, hey, if they overextend, we can make the play, we can go, but so much poke damage comes in so quickly that they're just not able to follow up on it. Now, RNG sitting with that 4,500 gold lead, Dragon in a minute's time, and with the control they have over pushing top, or sorry, pushing mid, into leaning into bot side vision, you can set up pretty easily here to make sure you can get that. They just need to make sure they're grouping up with, you know, the 4-man unit from way down to make sure that you're not getting caught out by PSG as you try and set up that vision in the bot side.
And the big thing as well, you're looking at maybe potential item spikes, potential moments for PSG to come back into this. The big one we always talk about from the Xayah specifically is the Eclipse into Mermana. That's not really quite there yet, and you're looking at a Triforce Mermana Ezreal on the opposite side of this. This is going to be rough around those dragon fights.
Yeah, I expected to kind of see the crit Xayah coming through again. Like, lethality Xayah has just been nerfed absolutely completely. The reason that it has been is the 6 seconds, or sorry, the 4-second cooldown on the Q into the 6 seconds means that you can't really play around the poke that she was able to, especially even just getting the number of feathers down that you need to, plus the nerf to the actual feather damage as well. Like, she's just been so hurt.
Has not been able to rectify or recreate the days of old, the reminiscing days of spring 2022. You can see now Juhan trying to see if he can catch out Wei, but no one really going to go for this. And this is a Hex Dragon Soul. So there's some creative ways you can go for this, but they're going to have the charm. The Glacier Fisher comes down. That's going to be Juhan dead straight away. TP coming in. That's going to be the Mega Gnar coming off of this one. I think it's straight in on top of the fight. The Gwen tries to make something work, but it's just not good enough. There was a TP from Bay, but it wasn't anywhere near the fight.
Yeah, Bay says, hey, and quickly dips out of the back of that fight. He wanted nothing to do with it. But that's what we're talking about, right? You can see RNG where the engage comes through from PSG. They kind of scatter across the board. Xiaohu backs away, Wei ults over the wall. They split up from the initial burst damage from PSG, and then they can start to readjust themselves in the fight with Ming coming through. Now you're on third dragon. You've already got really good control. We're only 18 minutes into the game. They just get to now set up their vision control nicely for Baron and just wait 5 minutes for this Hextech Soul to come through.
Yeah, it is, again, pure domination coming out from RNG. Not as clean as yesterday, but damn well still as good, as they are just catapulting, pushing themselves so far forward. And again, they just know they have full vision control, so they can set up a pick whenever they want.
Yeah, and they do get a really nice pick, but watch how they start to play the rest of this, right? You get a ton of PSG trying to jump on top of them. Wei hops over the wall, Xiaohu backs out, and they're just waiting for these big ultimates to be cleared out. And unfortunately, as the Gwen goes over the wall, Bean has managed to arrive with the Gnar, and now Kaiwing.
Not caught out just yet. Bay does come over and help him out. They get the spirit rush out of Xiaohu as well. Luckily for Kaiwing, he didn't have a flash to burn. It's coming up very soon, but yeah, this is starting to get a bit rough, and for RNG, they're just kind of playing with their food. They know where they need to be. They know they can out-muscle the side of PSG whenever they really want to, and Wei now just trying to see if he can just take away as many buffs as possible from Juhan.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're just kind of seeing what GALA and Ming can do when they get their hands on this Ezreal pick, because it just opens up Ming to go for these like level 1, level 2 plays we saw with Wei invading into the jungle. You get this bleed, and since then RNG, a little bit messy, but definitely you can see the threat that they are when Ming is out and open up on the map a little bit easier.
Yeah, and again, we're seeing this, RNG GALA just trying to do so much damage. Kaiwing goes for it, but it's just not quite able to get on top of the Ezreal. Taking down will just survive, but that was your quickness. That was the flash that we just talked about, burned off cooldown.
That was pretty much everything, right? Like the easy setup for PSG. Now you're kind of hoping Bay can land some long-range ult to get in towards the backline with the flash burn by GALA, but we'll have to see, because that is still no easy task.
It is not, and we're going to see now Wei just kind of pushing PSG away. You do have a Gwen, though, and Xayah. They will be able to clear out these minions pretty damn effectively, and they're just going to wait for the next wave. They've got 3 minutes to the next dragon spawns. Honestly, they got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, they just get to chill here, push this in. Bin's TP will be back up in time for the dragon, so he can always go up after they get this terror reset, move into this top side, keep pressure on towards the tier 2, and you don't really feel the pressure as RNG to quickly start this, right? Because you have complete control of the map.
Here we go, Shadow Surge lands on the GALA, he gets feared, he gets taken down, the turret was taken in the meantime. We're going to see now Juhan cannot get any more reset. There's Bin on the backside of this with some good feathers from Unified, but a 3-man into the wall. Bin almost turns it back around, but it's too many resets, too much damage, and Gwen is immune as PSG finally find them a fight.
That was huge from Bay, being able to find that ultimate, sneaking on towards GALA and demolish the main source of damage from RNG. And just like that, PSG, they find that brief moment of respite and get the ace, but they need so much more.
They need that probably about 3 more times. We can have a look at this fight right now, because it all starts with GALA just walking too far forward.
Yeah, ends up arcade shifting forward. Bay lands it as soon as his feet hit ground and destroys the Ezreal. And from this point forward, right, Xiaohu is doing his best, but you just don't have the damage to try and carry through this fight. We talked about how much work this Gwen could get done when she's immune in the front line, and even though you get this great ultimate from Bin, Xiaohu just can't follow up because of Azhi's positioning, and they're able to take the fight.
And again, RNG, they disrespected their opponent. I think GALA got way too aggressive right there and just went too far forward, causing such a big slip up there. And despite Bin getting that 3-man ultimate into the wall, it looked like they could have turned it back around. But again, like you said, the resets from the Vex, and of course the Gwen just shredding through people, was far too much.
You're still looking, though, at a minute until this Dragon Soul. And already RNG pushing in onto this bot side off of Xiaohu's pressure, starting to set up that vision control. We've already saw what RNG could do off of one quick pick with Juhan overextending at the last Dragon. So you've got to find some sort of way here as PSG to contest this vision, but it just becomes so difficult to do with Bin, as we already mentioned, established on this top side and pressuring the tier 2.
We got the pressure in mid, pressure in top. Everywhere has got pressure. You are definitely...
Don't sing it. Don't sing it. I know where you're going. No, no.
All right. Next time. But 20 seconds till this dragon spawns. We have a quick look. You still don't have flash on GALA or Ming, or Bin for that example, but use basically everything in that last fight as well for PSG. You don't have great engage. You are relying on a big shadow surge for Bay to get in on top with this Vex and get the Zhonya's off. You do have it stopwatch here for the Gwens. That could be pivotal in this fight, but it's going to be close.
But here's the thing, right? Like, RNG just get to keep you pushed back here. Xiaohu able to poke, Ming able to slow you down, Bin even threatened with the Mega Gnar, and then the dragon's already gone.
It's already gone. You're already too late to find it. It's going to be Hex Soul. They got the slow and the damage coming down. There's a great Glacial Fissure right up the middle of that choke point, and everything's already been used by PSG to try and get away. You don't have any more tools to fight. You have to use them to survive. Double kill going to Xiaohu on this Ahri, and you gotta feel like that's gonna be the final nail in the coffin.
I mean, it's Soul, it's gonna be Baron as well as RNG start to move over, and PSG, they tried their damnedest being able to get that one nice fight in bot side, but it just isn't going to be enough. RNG again looking to push themselves to 2-0 at the end of our second day.
I've got the Baron, they'll reset. Of course, we'll see a replay of that fight, I'm sure, as well, but this is just going to be a formality at this point for RNG. And again, PSG, at least they showed life. I see some great stuff coming in as well for Azhi. This guy was looking pretty damn good on this Gwen and isn't quite done with it just yet.
I will say he struggled a small bit in the late phase, you know, just a 60 CS lead.
I was going to say nearly 100 CS down, nearly.
But, GALA, I'll be alright. But I just don't know how much RNG are actually going to be able to get out of this Red Bull Baron power play, because you look at how much of the base for PSG remains, there's not exactly a huge amount, and when you think as well about the opportunity to look for poke with GALA underneath these towers, the siege is pretty damn strong, but you'll see here, Ming, that was beautiful. Completely catches Unified out. He's stuck on the slow, separates him from the team, and then Xiaohu flashing forward, getting these resets on the Ahri ult, and able to chase down so many members of PSG.
This is the RNG we expected. This is the RNG we saw yesterday. Again, it took a little bit of small little scuffs, you know. They're not 100% clean going home to their mom, but they are definitely feeling proud of what they've been able to do today. And again, it's just RNG just being RNG. Yes, the early game kind of sucked, but it didn't matter. Unless you get caught out like here, but Wade's got himself a stopwatch, and he's going to be able to turn it back around. This time, though, you ain't got your team, Juhan, to keep you alive. With the Hex Tech Soul, they're slowing everyone down, and yeah, you had to go for something. Honestly, PSG Talon, I admire the effort.
Yeah, I mean, look, you see some teams who would just kind of try and turtle, sit back in their base and not do a huge amount, but you got to try and do something in these positions. Maybe you can find some picks, maybe you can slow it down, but already 3,000 gold on the Red Bull Baron power play, the turrets are starting to fall, and you don't even have Juhan up for another 15 seconds.
Yep, and you're getting assaulted in mid and in top. You will lose the inhibitor in top side. You may even lose your Gwen in the mid lane as he goes forward. Xiaohu knows how that W works, and the Gwen is no longer immune. Now Xiaohu wants a little bit more blood. We're going to see them trying, just honestly saying, look, you're evicted. Get out of your house. You don't live here anymore.
Yeah, we're on the wrong side of the map. PSG look like they're trying to siege up, but RNG are like, no, you're not allowed in here anymore. And now with the top lane inhibitor going down, mid soon to follow, the base is in shambles for PSG Talon.
Still got Baron buff up for another 50 seconds. You've got minion waves in mid and top. It looks like they're going to just try and reset, use the gold they've just newly accrued, and just dot their I's and cross their T's.
I mean, I don't know how much more you really need for RNG, right? Like, Void Staff completed for Xiaohu, the needlessly large rod in there as well. I mean, you've got 3 items already completed for RNG.
Oh, wait for Ben. Where is he? There he is. Good man. He wasn't late. He wasn't late. You just had, you know, you had to sprint for the
we're
trade.
going again.
Here we go. Choo-choo. Let's go.
I mean, look, this is the best school day trip I've ever
honestly. It's just the pure giddiness you get when you're just excited to see how this stuff. You get on the train and stuff like that with all your mates. And yeah, they're just going to be able to use the Hex Rift to get themselves pushed down bot side. And yeah, PSG, you got to go for a final stand at some point.
I mean, I think that might have fallen already, but their base is starting to go. They can't really hold on to this.
Oh my Jesus! That is one mystic shot. Unified has to go into his ultimate. We do see the Arcane Barrage coming across the side of the team, but now with triple in him, little bit of minions left for them as well. GALA is feeling confident. GALA is feeling good. And we're going to see the final fight coming out for PSG. Can they delay this fight? As we can see the Shadow Surge all the way out to the backside. But the charm was good as Bay finally takes down GALA. They are trying to get the resets going here. And Juhan's doing some very good work at keeping himself alive. They can't get the Vex out though. And eventually, it was a valiant effort. They will end up having to back away. And I don't think they can survive much longer.
No, that is going to be it. RNG at the end of day 2 are going to hit that 2-0.
Oh, he's got to wait for 2 seconds right now because these health bars are a little bit low. Never mind. They're going to get the push in on top of this one now. The flash, the charm, the only person who could have done any possible damage is dead. RNG 2-0, PSG 0-2 at the end of day 2.
Yeah, and you can see it there, right? The difference between RNG's early game versus RNG's mid game. We saw a little bit of the fumbles coming through, but way overextending that bit too far, trying to go a bit over aggressive. But when we get to the mid game, it's clean, it's clinical, and it just looks like a completely different team.
It does, and I think that's why I personally am so excited to see the best early game team in the entire tournament, T1, against the best map playing team in the tournament. This is going to be such an interesting one of which one's stronger, which one's better, and we have to wait a while. It's a little bit until the Rumble starts, but still something to look forward to.
Yeah, also some of the most storied mid laners as well, with Xiaohu potentially going up against FLICKR would be a nice L time. But unfortunately for PSG Talon, like, this game just kind of ran away from themselves, even at the early stages. You look at how RNG have to play off their mid and bot prior, get into the fade, get these early kills, and even having the substitute step in, kind of throwing a wrench into the works as well. It feels like we didn't really get to see all the PSG Talon could have brought to the main stage.
Absolutely, and for the PCS, it feels like a little bit of a fall from grace. I'm not going to blame them. They've had their entire, like, some of their best players gutted from the league, brought out and told, like, you know, ourselves in the LPL. Some of them went over to LCS. It does feel like you are starting to kind of, you know, scrape the bottom of the barrel sometimes, and it is going to be a tough transition. It's going to feel a little sad sometimes when you used to be in MSI semifinals, and there was a question mark about whether you get out of groups.
Well, that's the thing, right? We see River and Maple already taken away because they've gone further afield. Then you look as well at Hanabi, who wasn't able to get into this either, where now you're kind of missing like so much of that dominant roster that made it. The only ones really remaining are Unified and Kaiwing, and unfortunately, going up against GALA and Ming, they just couldn't get their footing in that lane.
No, it is tough. And for RNG, another good step. Pretty expected to see them going for right now. And again, they just seem to be kind of, you know, basically picking up where they left off in spring. That's exactly kind of what we saw of them in spring. A little rocky in the early game, but then they just become so clean and so clinical.
Yeah, and I think, for PSG Talon, it looks a little bit unfortunate just because you're going, hey, look, Red and Istanbul Wildcats, that was a very close game, a very fun game, but when PSG Talon haven't been able to get themselves in any of these wins now, 0-2, you're kind of looking going, well, what have you got left?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. RNG now stands undefeated in their group and closes out day 2 of the MSI 2022 group stage. After the break, we'll be sending it over to MSI Cooldown to take a look at all of the games that happened today.
I woke up to the morning sky first, baby blue, just like we rehearsed. Go riders, go right, gasoline lighters, more fire, skid tires, blow up dynamite, need more wires. Noise shy to the origami, I'm enjoying like I don't know, I'm gonna come under the plum water. Set it off like this, set it off like